Hi there. I'm Evima from PPIM Mohari Kunaja, Klaten. I'm teaching junior high, but I sometimes also teach senior high.
Hello, Lawrence. Can you hear me? Try to say something.
Yeah, Ibu, I can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Mr. McAllister, are you there? Hi, Lawrence. Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you yet. Ah, okay.
The setting of the voice has not been taken. I mean, it's not been done by Lawrence. There's no microphone there. There's a problem with the microphone.
Assalamualaikum, good morning, Prof. Isi, Mr. Lawrence.
Good morning, Pak Lukman. Mas
How are you?
Lukman.
Sehat-sehat, Bu.
There's still a problem with the microphone of Mr. Lawrence, who is he? It's been connecting to the.
Hi, Lauren. Can you say something? Your microphone is still off. Your microphone there on Zoom, down there.
Your microphone is still muted.
Okay, you got me?
Ah, okay. I got you.
Hey, hello, EC. So,
Hi.
yeah, no, I just using the, hey, look what I'm wearing, EC.
Oh, batik.
Batik from
Great.
Semarang, yeah.
Batik
And
from Semarang.
I know. And I know. So let me just run through the screen sharing. Can I do that for you, EC?
Yeah. Please do.
Okay. Let's just walk through it. So I'm going to do screen sharing and with the sound, and we're going to test the screen sharing and then test the sound. Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's do this. Okay. Okay, so can you see that full intro slide?
Yeah.
Okay, that's working good.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead to the sound portion where I do a text. So let's come up here.
The sound is
So,
the sound is good.
No, there's no sound yet. Yeah, there's no sound. Okay, here comes the text. It should come in now. Do you want to tell me about something that happened then?
Yes. And I'd like to talk about the subject that I really like.
Can you hear that one?
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
But
you know,
to make the volume higher for that sound.
I got it as high as I can do it because it's an old recording that we made at EKIP. I think it was easy.
You took it from the video, from the tape, right? The audio tape.
It's tape, and we did it in EC, I think it was 1975. Let's just try it one more time, okay? Let's try it one more time, get the sound. Here we go. Do you want to tell me about something that happened then?
Yes. And I'd like to talk about the subject that I really like. First is friends.
Really?
Yes, because I'm in the A3 program for social.
Okay, so it's kind of low, is it? Is it good enough or
okay.
no?
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay. Let me just check. Okay, I'll check the audio up here. Okay, that's good. As long as it, I've redone this. It was a horrible audio. Here, I'll stop sharing. Okay, a horrible audio because, of course, we did it at EKEEP in those days. Did you do speaking with me? I think you did.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. A few times, a few classes. Yeah.
I know.
And
okay,
also CCU. And also CCU, remember?
I know. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So that looks good. Yeah. So I've got it as high as I think I can do it. So there's that one text, and then yeah. Okay. Good. I'll get set up here
Great.
now. So are you at EKEEP right now, EC?
Yeah, still.
Okay.
I'm pegawai negeri,
But it's
remember?
but it's early morning, right?
Yeah, it's 7:35, 37.
How are you? You doing okay?
Great, thanks. And you?
Good.
You,
You know,
how many grandchildren do you have now?
just the four. We have Thomas. I know you got a new grandbaby girl, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, granddaughter.
Thomas he's 12 and Nora's 9, and then the twin boys who are here are 7.
All right, lovely. We have some of your former students here. Pak Loli.
I'm sure they are. I see. Yeah, I
Yeah,
see.
like-
How many are on this Zoom? How many are going to be have registered?
690 about.
No.
However, usually when there is
no.
usually the number of the real participants is not as many because some register but might not show up.
Well, but what you got? Yeah, so that's a lot. Yeah, well, you got to get a world famous speaker, right?
You.
Okay, I'm gonna disappear for a minute. So everything is okay. So my screen sharing works, the sound works. I'm going to just
Sindan. Yeah.
disappear for a minute. I'll be back in about 5 minutes.
All right.
Is that okay?
You may
Izzy?
have your video off for the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Thank you, Lawrence.
Ya, pagi.
Coba itu. Aja.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Well, where's my students?
Okay, all previous students of Mr. McAllister, please raise hand so we can see you. Raise hand virtually. Mas Lukman and others, please.
Okay, yeah, cool.
There he is, Lukman and others, please raise your hands virtually so Pak Lori can recognize you.
Yo, where's Hayatun? Atun, where are you? EC. Well, you know my Facebook friends, right? EC?
Right, yeah.
90% are you guys.
Really?
Pretty well, pretty well. Yeah.
So you know Indonesians love Facebook.
Basically, it's my former students. It's so exciting to follow them up, right? They're professionals. They're colleagues now. They're co-workers. It's very fulfilling. Yeah, but they know we're gonna gab after, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have the informal reunion after
At
10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock. But you
yeah.
say hi to
Or when I'm done. When I'm done, it might be earlier. Good
But
to
you
see
may
you,
say
Lucy.
hi to them now because they are now. Yeah,
I
it's,
will. Well, you know, I see all these hands, but
yeah.
show me your face just for a second. Flash on your video. Let me have a look at you. My students, the ones I formerly, yeah.
You've got the video, right?
There's a few.
Prof. Utami, welcome.
Assalamualaikum.
Welcome,
Oh,
Prof.
hi,
Utami.
hi, hi. Hey,
Hi.
Yenny. Hello,
Waalaikumsalam.
Yenny.
Good morning.
I remember Yenny because my daughter's name is Jenny. So
Oh,
I'm scrolling through. There's certain students I will remember because of experiences we had in the classroom. And you know, stories of
Which do you remember the most? The naughtiest, the most talkative, or what?
sorry, what's that? Oh, I put the volume down. Sorry, what's that, EC?
Who you remember the most? I mean, which one? The most talkative, the funniest, the naughtiest, or what?
Probably. I mean, I remember Hayatun because we've kept in touch because of her art. She, my daughter's graduation from the international school in Salatiga, Hayatun she made a poster. So she was over in the house and we've kept in touch. But like Widi and Dedi and Septi and just all sorts of people. But Hayatun because she did work after some beautiful artwork. In fact, we still have it. It's for Jenny. It was when she graduated and she designed the poster for Jenny. So that was nice. And I remember Yenny. There's Yenny because she was very halus and quiet, but because she was the same name as my daughter, I think we liked each other kind of in a special way as father daughter. So yeah, it was a bit special there.
Jenny.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll get Bouquet to come on here.
Oh, who is Ibuke?
I have no idea, but there's some lady in the house around the corner. She's actually still working, so I'll go get her. I'm gonna come and say hi. I also remember students, we did some drama, and I remember some of the roles that students took in the drama, and Maya was one. I remember the name Maya. I think she was in the drama we did, Little Red Riding Hood, and she was Little Red Riding Hood. And so sometimes you just have certain little things that stand out. I don't know where she is. And Rofiana, because she was nuts. And I think last time I saw her, she was in, she's in the film industry or something. So that's cool. No. Oh, yeah. Right up there.
Hello, okay. Everyone, Pak Lukman, there she is. Pak Lukman was looking for Ibu K.
I'm going to change it then.
Lukman,
Hello.
say hi to Ibu
Hello,
K.
sir. Hello, sir. How are you? Hello, Bu Isi, I think.
Can you hear me still? And
Yes.
Okay.
can you hear us?
Yeah. Yeah, loud. Nice.
Does this sound as good as the other? Like, do I need the headphone or no?
I think without the headphone is better now.
We won't use the headphone then. Okay, excellent. So yeah, hi. So the sound is just as good without, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
$300. Who needs it, right?
you're right. You don't see anybody's faces here. This is, anyways, hi. I'm working at the, I'm working in the dining room table because we're here. Yeah.
It's dinner time in Canada, right?
It is, yeah. Well, it's 9 o'clock at night. Time to get ready for bed soon.
Oh, I see. So we're going to start in 2 minutes.
Okay,
Perfect.
sounds good.
Nice to
wants to
see
say-
you, Ibu Kay.
Who wants to say hi to Kay? Who wants to say hi to Kay?
Well, or not.
Pak Lukman. Oh, Kusmiati there.
Okay, yeah.
Ya, Bu.
Hello, Kay. Nice to see you.
See you.
There's Hayatun. Hello, Hayatun.
Halo.
Mbak Ayatun mikrofonnya masih off ya?
ECU asked who we remember the most, and actually it's you.
Hello, Valerie. Okay. I miss you so much.
Yeah, there's Hayatun.
There, Hayatun. There's it.
Yeah.
We'll talk after the presentation. You stay around.
Okay.
So who else is up?
Who else is down here?
Well, sorry to interrupt everyone. I think we will start soon. So you can switch your camera on right now.
I don't know if this meeting is being recorded. Okay. Hope it works without the thing. Maybe you want me to switch it back on. We have something to transfer. That stuff. Okay.
Can you hear me, EC? Everything okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Bu Pastor, your microphone is still off.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can start right now. Welcome, Lawrence, Prof. Utami. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, our distinguished guests and participants. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar for Central Java teachers on teaching grammar as communication, March 26, 2022. With me, Pastor Kalisa, as the master of ceremony for this 2-hour webinar. We proudly present this webinar initiated and organized by Central Java Teflin, and this webinar is attended by around more than 700 participants. So not only in Zoom, but also in our YouTube channel, from not only Central Java, but also all over Indonesia. So there are participants from Banjarmasin, Borneo, Lawrence, and Lok Sumawe, Aceh, East Java, West Java, Maluku, and many more. So welcome everybody on YouTube. As our commitment to serve our association for the teachers in Central Java and absolutely in Indonesia, allow me to give a short presentation of Teflin. And before we do that, so let us enjoy the Teflin video profile. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Teflin. So this is the Association for the Teaching of English as a Foreign Language in Indonesia. So the Association for the Teaching of English as a Foreign Language in Indonesia, or we call it as Teflin, is a professional organization run primarily by volunteer members of the organization. And the members of Teflin are institutions and individuals focusing on teaching English as a foreign language in Indonesia. So here Teflin focuses on developing its professional members and has an important role in Indonesian societies nowadays in the field of TEFL and TESOL. So there are two types of Teflin membership, everyone. So we have individual and institutional members. So individual members, this category is open to individual who pay membership fees apply for general membership, students, retires, and then current primary and secondary school teacher. And for the institutional members, this category is open to organization or institution that are dedicated to the goals of Teflin and are willing to support Teflin in attaining these goals. And here are the here are the benefits that you will get. So when you join the membership, so as a Teflin individual member, you receive the privilege of being part of the foremost national professional organization in Indonesia. And you will have the privilege of building a professional network, receiving regular online updates on the activities of Teflin, receiving discounts. So this is, I think, the most promising thing. Yeah, updates on the activities of Teflin and eligibility to apply and compete for specific awards awarded by Teflin, such as conference grants, Teacher of the Year, and Research Paper of the Year. And the right serve on any of the various Teflin committees and subcommittees, the privilege of primary consideration, all else being equal for publication in Teflin Journal and Teflin Voices, and provision of Teflin membership card downloadable from Teflin website. So how to register? So to join as a new member, as an individual, so you need to log in and have a Google account to join as a new member. You need to fill out and complete individual details, contact details, and school or institutions. And also you need to prepare your ID card to upload. This is optional. And you need to choose the type of membership. So general membership or student and teacher membership, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and lifetime. So you should click the button for proceed to payment, which allow you to select payments. You can pay on ATM, e-wallets via GoPay or Shopee Pay. And please read payment instruction for you to complete payment. And please be notified that your payment includes the third-party service fee of payment gateway. So here are the fees of general membership. So we have 1 year subscription, 3 year, and 5 year. And you know, the most important things and the most interesting thing is that for students and current primary and secondary school teacher, you just need to pay about 50,000 rupees in 1 year subscription, and then 100 for 3 year subscription, and 150,000 rupiah for 5 year subscription, and lifetime subscription for 50 years old above. So it's 300,000 rupees. Okay, so please join us, everyone. Visit our website, www.teflin.org. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for your attentive listening. So we are now having our speaker and moderator on the screen. So let us have the photo session by looking at your camera. So Lawrence in Indonesia, every minute is taking a picture. So we need to have that very soon. So everyone, please switch your camera on right now. Okay, let me count. 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Okay, next page. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next page. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next page. We have a lot of pages anyway. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So, yeah, I think we can start right now, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most difficult things about learning a new language is learning the grammar rules. And while English grammar can seem quite easy compared to some languages, a small mistake can easily change the meaning of what you want to say. So what if, as teachers and educators, teach grammar as communication? So that is why Central Java Teflin bring this topic to promote English teachers' awareness of the challenges in teaching grammar and how to teach grammar as communications. So before we proceed, let me inform you the house rules. Okay, so Teflin Jateng will record the whole webinar session. By attending this session, you acknowledge that your image and comments may be recorded and rebroadcast. Please ask a question to the moderator or type your question in the chat box on YouTube by mentioning your name, organization or affiliation, and the city. So moderator will summarize and deliver the question to the speaker. After the session ends, you will be redirected to the questionnaire. Please spend your time to give your feedback. Make sure you complete the questionnaires to be recorded on the attendance. Link to download a certificate and materials will be provided after you submit your feedback. Thank you. As Teflin Jateng will record the whole webinar session, so by attending this session, everyone, you acknowledge that your comments may be recorded and rebroadcast. For those wishing to give a question, please type your question in the chat box also. And well, ladies and gentlemen, today we already have 3 distinguished educators joining in front of us. We have Professor Utami Widyati, PhD, as the president of Teflin. Welcome, Professor. And then the next, Professor Isi Yuliastri, the Central Java Teflin coordinator. Good morning, Professor Isi. And the last, our distinguished speaker from Canada, Mr. Lawrence McAllister, our former guest lecturer at the English department of UNES, so used to be IKIP Semarang. Welcome, Lawrence. You can greet everyone here with us.
Hello, welcome. Yeah, great to be here.
And also Mrs. Kay McAllister. You know, she's not going to bed right now. So thank you. So thank you very much for coming to the webinar today during the heartbreaking pandemic. I also would like to thank all participants of this webinar for attending on our Zoom meeting on our YouTube. Hello, everyone. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, to start, we're gonna have Professor Utami Widyati as the president of Teflin to deliver the opening remarks and to welcome us today. Professor Widyati, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Pasha. Can you hear me?
Yes, already, it's
Okay,
clear.
good. All right. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning here in Indonesia and a very good evening there in Canada, yeah, for Mr. Lawrence McAllister. Well, warm greetings from Teflin, the Association for the Teaching of English as a Foreign Language in Indonesia. The honorable guest speaker, participants, ladies and gentlemen, I hope everyone is feeling well this morning, today. And first and foremost, as the president of Teflin, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar on teaching grammar as communication, hosted by Teflin's Jawa Tengah or Central Java chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to also express my sincere gratitude and appreciation to the speaker, the guest speaker, and participants of this webinar. The Jawa Tengah chapter has managed to invite Mr. Lawrence McAllister, the former lecturer as well at UNES, Universitas Negeri Semarang, to discuss issues related to teaching grammar. I think since the introduction of communicative language teaching, there have been quite many controversies regarding grammar teaching. Some of us might ask whether we need to teach grammar overtly, explicitly, intentionally, or can we just teach grammar incidentally through other language activities? So I think we are very fortunate that the webinar today will give us some practical understanding about teaching grammar as communication. You can also find out later in this webinar about how essential grammar is as actually in English language teaching. So to us, perhaps it's not a matter of whether we need to teach grammar or not, but what matters more will be how to teach it, how to teach grammar. Once I read in much literature that learning a foreign language basically means learning the grammar, learning the vocabulary, learning the phonology through listening, speaking, reading, and writing activities. Because of this event, which is hosted by the Central Java chapter, I would like to extend our special big thanks from Teflin board to the coordinator of Teflin's Jawa Tengah chapter, Professor Isi Yuliasri, and of course the committee who have been working very hard to make this academic forum possible. Sincere appreciation is also devoted to all the participants, the audience who have been willing to take part in this event. Hopefully, this academic forum can be a means to share information, to share knowledge and insights that can be beneficial for the wider community, especially in the fields of English language teaching. I hope that everyone will enjoy the webinar, taking as many lessons from it as possible. Well, have a great webinar, everyone. Stay healthy and safe. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Utami Widyati, for the inspiring speech, and have a great day too for you. So, and ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our opening today. So without any further ado, let us welcome our distinguished speaker, Mr. Lawrence McAllister, and Professor Isi as the moderator.
Thank you. Good morning, Professor Utami. Good morning, Mr. McAllister and everyone. I'm glad to be the moderator of this very important event that we are having today, and especially with our special guest, our special speaker, Mr. Lawrence McAllister. And I know that some of the participants here are the former students of Mr. Lawrence McAllister and are looking and they are looking forward to the informal reunion after the formal webinar today. Well, before we allow Mr. McAllister to give the presentation, I'd like to introduce him to those who don't know Mr. McAllister yet. So Mr. McAllister or Lawrence is a linguist and ESL instructor, teacher trainer who has worked in China Peking University, Indonesia, IKIP Semarang, now UNES, and Canada, Trinity Western University, Simon Fraser University. His main field of work is English for academic purposes, with a special interest in how to make English grammar meaningful and approachable for both students and teachers. Besides classroom work, Lawrence has been a regular participant and presenter in local and international workshops and conferences. Extracurricular interests include music, photography, and anything outdoors, hiking, biking, kayaking, snowshoeing. And Lawrence retired in 2021, but can't seem to get away from his former colleague, which is me. Dead. Who now has him back at work. Thank you, Lawrence, for the funny remark. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll just have Mr. McAllister to give his presentation. Please, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, EC. So many thoughts are going through my mind. The first thing is I just went to the shelf of my bookshelf behind me, and this is the Teflin Journal. The year on it, this would be of special interest to you, EC, is 1994.
Wow.
And I opened inside, and Professor Ramalan was editor at that time. EC, I don't think you were born in 1994, were you?
Are you kidding? I was.
Anyway, Professor Ramalan, who has a very, very special place in Kay's life, because when we went to IKIP, I was the teacher, Kay was just Ikut Swami. And it was Professor Ramalan who asked Kay if she would be his assistant. As you know, Professor Ramalan was a very distinguished linguist in Indonesia, and we were fortunate to have him at IKIP at that time. He asked Kay, and Kay said no, and he said, yes, come, I will, just let me work with you. And it was Professor Ramalan that got Kay interested in TESOL. When we went back home, she went and did a graduate study and came back and was hired as an instructor, all because of Professor Ramalan. And she tells that story wherever she goes now, that she owes her career as a TESOL professional to Professor Ramalan, who was a colleague at IKIP. So anyway, we have a very close relationship to Teflin way back in the early days. I wrote an article in this one. I think I was editing some of the language, and I wrote an article called The Form and Function of Operator.
Consistently about grammar, yeah.
There you go. Just can't get away from it.
And now I'm the chief editor of this journal.
Well, does it still look like this?
No, it changes in terms of the.
Is the binding a little better because the pages all fall out? This is this is a wonderful antique. And a memory that
we have the online version. Yeah, the online.
And we were there too. My wife was the editor of Suara Merdeka in Semarang, had an English column, and Kay went in and worked with them every day. Not every day, but once a week, helping their English program there. They had Hello Magazine. Do they still have Hello Magazine? Do they still have it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they have this column, because we read news online and we don't subscribe the newspaper anymore.
It's right there. Yeah. Anyway, yes, as I said, EC's been trying to get me to come back to Indonesia for many, many years. EC is, I've known this, is very persistent. And it's a very positive, she would not be where she is. So I consider her my boss because of this, but also consider her and her family very, very dear friends. And and for those who know me, hello, we'll have a little social after. For those who don't know me, we were in Indonesia, taught at then IKIP Semarang, old campus in Kampus Tulun, which has been moved up to the hill where it is now a beautiful university. I'm going to make a presentation. It's going to be a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share the screen and talk through it. Then if anything comes up during the presentation, I've said something, write it down on a piece of paper. And then there'll be moments, there'll be times when I'll pause, come back to face and take a Q&A. So we'll do that about 2 or 3 times during the presentation. Well, there'll be times for questions on what I've covered so far. Is that okay, Isi?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so let me share my screen now with you. Okay. So just to confirm, you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. I've had an interest in grammar since the day I started teaching, perhaps because my background is in linguistics. So I came into TESOL from also being a linguist. So that aspect of analyzing, understanding language, but really for me, grammar is the same, it's a synonym for language. It's all tied up and often probably in your career and in mine, you might run into a situation where you don't know if the problem is grammar or if the problem is vocabulary or if the problem is pronunciation, and it gets all mixed up. And the more I teach, the more I see that grammar cannot be separated from the lexical, the vocabulary, and certainly in speaking, the pronunciation component. It's all mixed up together. We're talking about teaching language. Teaching grammar. This is what normally people think when it comes to teaching grammar. We've developed this intricate system, this meta language where there's all these terms and we break the language up into parts. And the smaller the part, the better it is. And there's, of course, 50 more such words that we can put on the screen about what grammar is. And it's very common to view grammar as something that you either get right or you get it wrong. Okay, so the teacher's job and the response of the teacher is to point out and correct that grammar mistake, that grammar error. And we've developed, for example, in writing, we've developed a very intricate system of symbols and of methods where we can identify what the error is to the student. So we'll take our red pen, that wonderful red pen, and we'll write WF for word form, agreement, article, run on, verb tense, verb form, singular, plural, pronoun, something's missing, etc., etc. And very often, that's just the way it is. It's true. My house big, something's missing. In English, you've got to have a verb in a sentence. So we give them that symbol. I want to be success in my life. Well, you need an adjective. It's the wrong form. Success is a noun. So we write word form. Want the student to correct that error. Most people likes ice cream. They likes. Doesn't work in English. You have to have the proper agreement. So we do this, especially in teaching writing, and I've taught writing, speaking. There's different methods in speaking to interject when students make errors. And a lot of our work is this. Okay, but I'm going to take a very different approach today. And I want to look at grammar not as those distinct statements waiting for a microphone. Hello, okay, we okay? Okay, thank you. So rather than view it as these segments and systems, an approach to grammar is communication. And let me tell you how I got into this. It actually happened at IKI. And very often teaching is very monotonous, boring work, day in, day out. You teach the same thing over and over again, and you don't see much progress. The students still make the same errors in 3 years as they made when you had them 3 years ago, and you're just repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And I remember Diane Larson Freeman, a great linguist who's written in grammar, used the analogy, this is in the northern communities, of snow. And teaching is often like snow, just piling up the snow. And every once in a while, that snow gets so heavy that it forms ice and it shifts. And we have a great avalanche, which is called learning. And maybe once or twice in our lives as teachers, we get to see a great avalanche of learning. Most of it is just building up. And I thought that from Diane was a good analogy. In my teaching career, there's been about 4. 2 of them I want to share with you. 2 moments when something happened that really impacted me. It was a real shift in my teaching. And I'm going to share both of these with you. It got my interest in grammar, and it changed the way I teach. So what I'm sharing with you is very personal to me because this is real data, real stories. The idea of grammar as communication is kind of like this. Like communication, you can choose what you want to say. You can choose equally correct structures. For example, you can say, I love you, or you can say, I loved you. It's your choice. Be careful though, because if you say one and you mean the other, you've communicated something that might get you into trouble. Okay? But it's a choice. Both of these are correct. You can say, do you have chocolate? Or you can say, ask, do you have chocolates? Completely different meaning, but both are correct. You can say, I'm going to a movie. You can say, I'm going to the movie. And there's a very interesting change in how I interpret that sentence. Both are correct, but both have different meanings. Of course, the classic pronoun, I really like her. You can say that. You could also say, I really like him. Both are options. Both are correct. You can say, I will help you with modals. I might help you. I should help you. Various meanings, all are correct. Here's an interesting one. It's kind of like a test. He's in the hospital. You know, where's your brother? Oh, he's in the hospital. Or I could say, he's at the hospital. Anybody want to venture a guess in the meaning difference between those two? Which one means he's sick? It's he's in the hospital. It means he's sick. He's at the hospital means he could be visiting or a worker, but both are options. Both are options. Syntax, the order. You could say Sally kissed Bill, or you could say Bill kissed Sally. And I don't know who's happy here, Bill or Sally. Looks to me like Bill, I think. The whole point is that grammar is a choice of equally correct structures. And all of these structures are correct. All of these sentences are completely correct, but the pairs I've given have very different meanings, okay? And I'm gonna look at 2 this evening, 1 tense and 1 nouns. Okay, those are the only 2 we're gonna look at. And I'm gonna give you for each a sample text of a tense issue, a sample text of a noun issue, and then a communicative approach to the so-called error, which is not really an error at all, but it's certainly miscommunication. So those are the 2 we're going to look at. Okay, so that's the first. So in grammar, I've heard students make many errors, but they're not errors. They're communicating very clearly. They just said, I loved you, when they should have said, I love you. Secondly, grammar can communicate clear misinformation, okay? And this is very interesting. Grammar communicates very, very clearly. As I said before, you can say, I love you. But if you say it to your former boyfriend and your husband's there beside you, that's probably not the right thing you want to say to your former boyfriend. I love you. Conversely, you could say, I loved you to your current spouse, but I'd warn against that anytime. Dear, I once loved you. What's the next word? But. So you may be communicating something that is misinformation. So you could say, my best friend moved to Singapore. He got a great job there. Problem is, now that by the way, that is perfectly clear grammar. My best friend moved to Singapore. He got a great job there. And I know something very, very significant about your best friend. It's a he, it's a male, okay? And if you're a female talking, that might be interesting, okay? If you're a married lady and you say, my best friend, he, okay, that's fine. But what if your best friend is female? You've miscommunicated something very, very significant. So the whole lie, by saying my best friend moved to Singapore, he got a great job there, my best friend's female, by saying that I have clearly miscommunicated in perfectly correct grammar. And that's what I want to focus on. So many so-called errors are not errors at all. They're grammatically correct, but they don't communicate the intended meaning. They don't communicate what you wanted the listener to say, whether it's in speaking or in writing. Now, both of my examples that I'm going to give and we're going to talk about come in a speaking context because speaking is much more natural, okay? And it allows for this communicative interaction in a very same way. But if you looked at how I taught writing and how I interact with my students in writing, I don't use those symbols. I use the symbols sometimes, but more often I dialogue with them. I ask questions. Oh, so your friend is a guy, is a boy. What's his name? You know, things like that. I'll write and interact with their writing in that way. But the examples we're going to give are from mainly speaking. Okay, so far so good. EC, are we okay?
Yes.
Okay. So let's look at these 8 sentences. Okay, the subject that I really like is French. Okay, I am in the A3 program. Okay, I really like that subject. Looks good. We can study about France. Good. Number 5, she is very beautiful. Not talking about me. Number 6, we can accept the lesson. Good. Number 7, she's patient. And finally, she will explain the very difficult things. Okay, let's look at the grammar. Can anybody find any grammar errors? The answer, of course, is no. This is 100% A+++ grammar. Perfect sentences, absolutely perfect. But in terms of the intended meaning and communication, I was going to give this a 0 because these 8 sentences are from a text we're going to listen to. And every single one of these 8 sentences is not what the person meant to say. Okay? So let's set the stage. So text 1 is a correct verb tense that miscommunicates very, very clearly, but it's correct. Okay? Now, this was back when I taught at IKIP, now UNES. We left before it had become UNES, but we are on the new campus up at Gunung Pati there. Fakultas PBS, is that? Yeah, Fakultas Pendidikan Bahasa dan Seni. And this was a speaking test. We recorded the speaking tests. EC remembers doing this on cassette recorders. And the topic of this speaking test was high school days, okay? And the question that in this text I used was, do you want to tell me about something that happened then, okay? Now, this is an actual audio of a student, and I know who the student is. The student knows who she is, And we communicated again just a few days ago, and she's fine to let us use this text. So I use this with permission. And the audio may be a little difficult. I've worked with the audio to restore it. It was recorded in about 1995, before some of you were even born. And so you might want to really turn up the speakers a little loud to hear this. And I just want to check on the audio, okay? So we're going to play, this is a speaking test. And this is a student who's responding to the topic, high school days, and responding to my question, do you want to tell me about something that happened then? Okay. Do you want to tell me about something that happened then?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear audio?
I'd like to talk about the subject that I really like. First is friends.
Really?
Yes, because I'm in the A3 program for social.
EC, can you hear audio?
Yes, perfectly. Yeah.
I can. So I'm going to put my headphone back on. Just a little pause now. Quick, go up, take a drink of water.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this back on because I need to hear the audio.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a change here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just wait, EC. Can you hear me now or not yet?
Yeah, yeah. Perfect.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
It's better? Okay, this is on the, okay, I'm just changing I'm using the headset so I can hear the audio. Is it okay still?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We're going to try it one more time. Oh, by the way, does anybody have any questions yet? Everything's okay so far?
Well, participants, you may ask questions when Mr. McAllister allows you to. So now Mr. McAllister gives you the chance if you have question. I think there is a question in the chat box here from somebody. Hang on.
Just want to make sure we're all, because this is kind of an introduction.
My question is how to teach students who have no basic grammar, but I have to teach them both grammar and speaking skill from Ibu Darwati.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask is don't ask questions, just ask questions about what I've presented, okay? Because we're going to just focus on teaching grammars, communication. So we want a discussion on just the information that I've presented. But then at the very end, we maybe be able to take some other questions like that. But right now, so just to understand maybe what's happening, this is about grammar that is, there's no real grammar error, but they're communicating something completely different.
All right.
I just want to make sure people understand that, okay?
All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laurie. I'm Darwati.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay, let's start again. Let's see if I can get the sound because I need to hear the sound myself. Okay. Okay, so we're at Ikip and here is the text.
Do you want to tell me about something that happened then?
Yes. And I'd like to talk about the subject that I really like. First is friends.
Really?
Yes, because I'm in the A3 program for social. I really like that subject because we can study about friends, about the language, but not until I advance. Just for the first grade.
Did you study French in SMA?
Yes, in SMA.
Who was your teacher? French teacher?
Mrs. Martin. She's very beautiful. And she taught us with a very nice way, so we can accept the lesson.
How did she teach that made it good?
She's patient and will explain the very difficult things to the student.
Okay. So let's have a look here. What's the problem? Because on at least 2 occasions, I was confused. And could you hear it relatively okay, EC?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the topic. The topic was high school days, okay? And I wanted her to talk about something that happened then. And I was very clear in the tense I use, because this is something, of course, that is a few years ago. And this is the context, right? This is the context in which you set up for any communication. And what this does, it puts you in what I call a temporal frame of reference, okay? And clearly my frame of reference here is going to be past. The time is going to be a past time. Some have used this expression, structures of expectation. So what this means is I expect, because it's past time, I expect certain structures. Okay, I don't expect will. I don't expect like or is. Those are a different temporal frame of reference. Okay, so high school days back then, tell me what happened. Okay, so when I put all these things together, I'm going to use yellow to indicate past. So I now, as a listener, am sitting in the past tense because of the information I have, the topic, my question, and I'm waiting and I'm expecting certain things. Okay? Now, before I go on, remember, everything that this student says is grammatically perfect, 100% grammar, okay, in terms of grammar itself. But of course, there's complete misinformation.
I'd like to talk about the subject that I really like. First is French.
Really?
Yes, because I'm in the A3 program for social.
Okay, so first of all, I'm confused because she says the subject I really like is French. And then I say, really? And she said, yes. I'm going, okay. And then she says, because I am in the A3 program. Now, let me tell you again, this is not made up. This is not from some book. This is me talking to my student who is now married and is a professional, and maybe she's even here listening right now, a professional educator that we keep in touch. She's my colleague. We're working together, except I'm retired. But back then as a student, all this is real. And I was new at UNES. Now I need to give you some information. And this is where it's very important to know your audience, okay? So here I am, and I'm teaching in the English language department in the Fakultas, what is FP? Fakultas Pendidikan Bahasa dan Seni. And in our department, we had Bahasa Jawa, we had Bahasa Inggris, we had Bahasa Prancis, we had French. What other languages were taught? There was a number of languages and music and dance. Okay. So I knew that these were all in our faculty. And I knew this student was in my English class, okay, in the English department. And when she said the subject that I really like is French, by the way, that's very clear communication. And I am in the A3 program. I didn't know what the A3 program is, but what I thought is this must be an EKEEP program. And I remember this is something that was very significant to me, because I remember very clearly thinking, okay, she's in two departments. She's in the French department and she's in the English department, but she prefers the French department. Her favorite subject is French, and French has something called A3 at EKEEP right now. Why did I say that? Because that's exactly what her language communicated. perfectly clear, correct English, which said, I am in both the English and French department, and I like French the best. I said, really? She said, yes. Okay. And so I'm confused. And I remember this in my teaching career. This was the first very significant experience I had, and it was all real. And I'm so fortunate that I had it recorded. So what did I do? And I remember this very clearly. I changed. I said, well, she's now not talking about high school. She's talking about Ikip now. And so I changed my temporal frame to present. And now I'm expecting present. So now everything is fine. Okay, at Ikip. This is exactly what happened. So everything is fine. And I'm going, okay, so she's changed the topic. She's talking about Ikip now.
I really like that subject because we can study about French, about the language, but not until I advance, just for the first grade.
Did you study French in SMA?
Yes, in SMA.
Okay, now I'm starting to get confused. Why did I start to get confused? Now, SMA is high school. Is that correct, EC? I think it's high school, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now I'm saying, well, hold it. What are you talking about? Why did I all of a sudden change and think, well, maybe she is talking about high school? Well, she used this word but, and then she used advanced, but I wasn't sure if she said advanced or advanced. But even advanced, move on, it sounded to me that she was talking about something that maybe happened in the past. So I needed clarification. So did you study French in SMA? And she said, and I used the past. Okay, so did you study French in high school? So I'm trying to get her back now, checking it out, and she says yes. So I go, okay, let's go back now to the past. So I'm now going back and I'm waiting for a story. Easy, this is exactly what happened. I remember this so clearly. So, okay, now I'll go back and now she'll talk to me about high school. Who was your teacher? French teacher?
Mrs. Maratin.
Okay, and I continue to use past tense in my questions. Did you study French in SMA? Who was your teacher? I'm trying to be clear to her, help her along.
She's very beautiful and she taught us with a very nice way, so we can accept the lesson.
Okay, so now I'm back to being confused again because she's now gone into the present again by saying she is very beautiful and we can accept the lesson. But then she said, and she taught us. So now I remember being a bit confused. I don't know, maybe this Mrs. Sigmaratin is in the faculty, is in the French department at Ikip. I don't know, she is very beautiful. That's present. So using both time frames, and I'm still thinking she's talking about high school, but I'm not sure because she's back into the present. So when I said, who was your teacher? She probably didn't hear that and just went back into she is and we can accept, although there was that one past frame, the past tense. Okay, let's keep going. How did she teach that made it good? Okay, so now again, how did she teach that made it good? I'm now pretty convinced she's trying to tell me about something that happened in high school in the past, but let me help her here. And so she goes on and says,
She's patient and will explain the very difficult things to the student.
Okay, so at the end, she uses the present again and then uses the will, which is kind of a future structure. So past, present, and future is mixed up in this text. The point is, everything she says grammatically is perfectly correct. There are no grammar errors. There's no agreement errors. There's no word form errors. There's no errors. But it's violating what I expected. And then sometimes it doesn't, and then sometimes it does. So I'm very confused, okay? So When I taught at IKIP at Gunung Pati at UNES, there were tennis courts. And I remember going out and saying, hey, I can use this as an example to illustrate communication, whether it's speaking or whether it's writing. Okay. And EC reminded me of this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking. In communication, excuse me, past or present or future, both courts, in this case, past and present, are grammatically correct. There's nothing wrong with past, there's nothing wrong with present, lovely court setup, nothing wrong there. But the players need to be in the same court to play the game. And I found myself running back and forth, trying to figure out where she was. I began by asking a past question. Can you tell me about something that happened then? And the return was, my favorite subject is French. And that's what happened in this dialogue. Okay. So this was an experience that I had at IKIP. And it's, you know, it was, I was talking to this student last week, and I was saying, by the way, in your text, fluent, good vocabulary. It's just that I didn't know really what you were talking about. 100% grammar correctness, very low degree of communication. Okay. And so what do you do? How do you deal with these verb tense problems communicatively? Okay. And here's what I want to share with you, and I'll stop and take questions when I'm finished this part. And think of questions about this concept, not about something else. So the whole idea of time and tense is this: time is kind of like the court. Okay. All texts, whether it's spoken or reading or writing, have an overriding time or an underlying time orientation. It's a semantic notion. It's about meaning. For example, you can say last week. That immediately tells you what court you're going to play on. That's the time orientation. Every day, in 3 years, World War I, when I was in high school. It doesn't matter. You could open any book, listen to any conversation, and you'll have this time orientation in that text. Okay? So that's the first thing, time. Tense is the play, and that's where you get the inflection. That's where you put the S or the ED. That's what the play is all about, and it's the grammatical expression of that time. Okay? If you're a linguist, you want a real fancy, you want to impress your colleagues, it's the morphological representation of time on the verb phrase. In other words, you change your verb tense with physical, visible markings, okay? So that's what the play is. So if the time is when I was in high school, I really like French. No, it has to be I liked French, because my choice of verb is a result of the time that I'm in, the court I'm playing on. Okay. Now here's the big thing, and this is what a lot of teaching does not do. Time is the boss. Very often, all we focus on is the tense, is the tense. But tense is a result of something far bigger, which is the time. So before tense is marked, before you start putting tense on your verbs, whether you're speaking or whether you're writing, have your students think about, well, what time am I talking about? Okay. So in terms of the tennis court, okay, I got 2 options here. And I think when I was in high school, and I'm thinking, well, that was a long time ago. So my text is going to be in the past. Let's play in the past tennis court, okay? And it's because of the time when I was in high school. You don't even need to have when I was in high school. You could just say my high school life, okay? And so that is the time. Then, when I was in high school, I really liked French. Okay, now we're playing the game in that court. But what's most important is the time, and why students constantly make errors in their verb tense is they're forgetting about the bigger concept of what time you're writing about. Okay, and there's many kind of methods and strategies to help them think time before tense, but all this came out of this text I had that I played with you. So when you're correcting, when you're teaching, don't mark wrong tense, wrong tense, wrong tense. Ask about the court. Ask them, for example, what time is this? What time are you talking about? Okay. And then they can fix up the tense. Much easier in writing. But when I do writing in this type of writing, a low-level writing where maybe they're writing about a story, about something that happened last week, I never mark the tense. If there's a present tense, I'll just write in the text, what time is it? Okay? Is it past or is it present? And then make your verbs fit that time. So let's have a look here one more time, and then we'll take some questions. Here's this text. Subject I really like is French. Okay, that sounds perfect, except you got to realize what the question was. When you were in high school, tell me something that happened. And the subject I really like is French does not fit that time expectation past. I expect all of these verbs to be past, yellow. This is what I expect. This is completely what I expect. Okay, but they're not. Most of the time, the students are using present. There's one yellow, one past, taught, and there's one future. Okay? Now, I do not mark, and this is how you teach grammar communicatively. I don't mark the verb tense errors. I don't put VT, 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 VT. 10 times I'd put that. For two reasons. Number one, students can easily correct like to liked and is to was. They can easily do that and they'll get it correct, but they haven't learned a thing. And the second reason is they're forgetting that something's more important than correcting all these verb tenses, and that is figuring out what's the topic. What temporal frame are you in? So here's what I do. And I remember I've done this for many, many years. I ask my students, what time is it? Are you talking about now or back in high school? That's all I do. And then I get a text like this, which is the same perfect grammar, but completely different. It's perfect communication. And so this is my first text and my first point about teaching grammar communicatively. Very often what they're saying is completely correct, but it's not what they wanted. And I've given the illustration of verb tense here. So I think, yeah. So let's stop. I'm going to stop sharing. And here's where I'm going to get some questions. Idea. I'll let you handle it, EC.
All right. Well, I think everyone has got what Mr. McAllister has said to you, that sometimes you make perfectly grammatically correct sentences, but then it's not in the right frame. When you are expected to speak in the past frame, then Indonesian people usually use the present time frame, which confuse the native speaker, in this case, Mr. McAllister. So,
sorry.
So this is a very important lesson, that when we speak in a wrong frame, although the sentence is grammatically correct, then it is wrongly communicate the intention. So that's the idea of what Mr. McAllister has presented just now. So we will allow some participants to ask questions or give comments by raising hands. And we now see Pak Widianto, yeah, Ibu Endang Puspaningsi. Now I will let Pak Widianto first to ask the question.
Okay, good morning and good evening, Lawrence.
Hey.
Hi. I was a friend of Mike Burry, your college, I think. Mike Burry.
Mike, is this Weedy?
Yes, I am
Yes,
Weedy.
that's the Weedy. Now he's the ketua jurusan.
I know. He's my Facebook friend. Weedy, I know you very well.
Thank you.
So nice to hear you. I follow you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much.
I know Kay would love to see. Where's your face? But anyway, great to hear you.
Yeah,
Wonderful, Weedy.
Hi, I'm in the middle of a rice field now. Okay, I think I just want to give a comment after you teach me when I was in undergrad. You teach me about frame. You always remind us about frame. VD was the frame, right? Okay, that's what I remember. Even I still remember that. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good for me. I'm still remember that when you, I think you tested us that you wore batik inside of your blue jeans in before, I think, when we were having CCU class, cross-cultural understanding. Okay, so I may give a kind of comment in your analysis that I think this is the same the thing that I have I learned from when I was study with Mike that this is because in our language in Indonesian we have no finite. Okay, Lawrence, I tell you that I am a follower of Halidayan linguistics. So finite is a very important in English, but not in Indonesia. I can say that I am a teacher. Saya seorang guru. Even I say that saya seorang guru kapan? Dulu sebelum jadi dosen. But I'm still, I say, saya seorang guru sampai nanti kalau pensiun saya mau jadi guru ngaji. Okay, so I think tense has become a kind of struggle for us, especially as English is a foreign language in Indonesia. That to be stick on a frame is a kind of very difficult. Sometimes we always be in a present tense. Though you have to be very you have to be very powerful in moving from one chord to the other chord. That's what your analogy. But we are having lambit that we can go anywhere, just flying like somebody that we can go to any chord even in one speech. So the problem was about the finite. Okay. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Weedy. Great to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Busi.
Thank you, Pak Weedy. Lawrence, would you please respond to that, or that's just it?
No, it's what he said. I was going to ask him, well, here's the big question for every teacher. This is a very scary question to ask a student. Did it work? That's a very dangerous question because the student will politely say, oh, yes, it worked, but maybe it didn't. But I do know that the thing is, Weedy, and for others is, especially for teaching, I find this is much easier to do with lower levels. And one of the principles of teaching that I believe in is that if you're teaching lower level students, your job is far more important than those of us that teach higher level or academic English. And the reason is this.
Exactly.
You get the opportunity to introduce them to the language for the very first time. And the way you introduce them to the language is correctly. I would say that 80% of my job is not teaching anything new to students. It's trying to correct what they've never learned to begin with. And so those of you who are listening, who teach elementary, SD, and your students are just learning English, and I think that's what the first question was, you have the wonderful opportunity to teach it correctly from day one. And here's an example that you can do. You can take you can divide your class into 2 sections. You can do it simply with desks, or I've done it with colored paper. So when you're talking in the past, go and stand on the yellow piece of paper. Go and stand in that line. And then I'm going to ask you a question, and there's that constant reminder that I am now in the past frame or court. Okay. So when I start talking, or even if they're sitting and they're writing, there's that they can look down, oh yeah, yellow, and they can always see that. Then have them change. Okay. Now I want you to go to the present frame, present temporal frame.
Yeah.
Okay. And now do the same thing again, but you're in a different time frame, right? And so there's these little strategies. I've done some of these, but these are especially effective with younger students, or not young in age, but young in ability. It could be adults, where you get the opportunity to orient them to the time before the tense. So anyway, yeah.
I think it's still working the way you teach it. I think we still have to remind students, busy, right? That in our department, sometimes the students still switch frame. And especially now it's difficult that in high school, I think we teach them text-based, that grammar is not so much as focus, but still I think marrying between text grammar and grammar translation method, whatever that we teach them, grammar is still needed, I think. Okay, thank you, Lawrence.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. Now I will let Ibu Endang Puspaningsih to ask the question. Please do. Your microphone is still off, Bu Endang.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Ibu. First of all, I would like to say my gratitude to Lawrence because what he just said really made me happy. I mean, teaching lower students, because I'm an English teacher for SMP. Yeah, for SMP, meaning that, like what he said, that I'm lucky enough to teach them the basic, especially the grammar and everything. But teaching lower students also made me feel like this is correlated with what he said, that when he corrected the student's mistake, he didn't say that the tenses is wrong, but instead he just write down what is the time frame.
What court are you on?
Or in school, or in high school. It is possible because you deal with students who had already had a background. But how about for the students like second graders who do not know anything about grammar, about structure, about the time frame? What should we do?
Yeah, don't teach them about grammar or about structures. You have the wonderful opportunity to help them produce language, correct language right from the start. So the illustration I gave of, if you want children to write a little story of 5 sentences or 3 sentences about, let's say, their favorite toy, okay, then what you do is you get a marker. This, of course, is going to be easy, but you get a marker, or I've used paper, and I colored paper. Let's say blue for present, okay? And they're right there, and you say, now, when you write, you're talking about something that's real, okay? That exists, it's present, it's right now. So you tell me about this. Then the next assignment you give them is to write 5 sentences about something that happened last week. What did they do with their friend? Then you move them to a completely different part of the room, the past corner. You can do the corners. This is the past corner of the room, or the past color. And you tell them, now, when you speak here, you can't say is, you have to say was, because you're in a different. And so you can do that very slowly, very gently, but these visuals where the kids will even move to the past corner and then the present corner to then do their activity, very controlled, but you're starting to train the mind to think that way. And yeah, just something to try. And yeah.
Okay, thanks for the tips. Then I think SMP teachers need to have this kind of training. So we will, especially I will be very happy if you can give us more on that kind of training.
Well, let me give you one more example in one more text when we finish the questions here. It'll take about half an hour, EC.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Well, Lawrence, there is another person to ask question.
Okay, one more. Yeah.
Yeah. Please, Pak Supariana.
Thank you, Mrs. Isi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Ya, Ibu Isi dulu dosen saya, Pak McAllister.
Ya, ngerti. Ya,
ya, beliau dulu waktu masih muda. Ya. Before I start, please allow me to say hi to some participants, to Mr. Widianto, maybe Mr. Widi.
I still remember you, Mas.
Used to be my junior at IKIP at that time. Mr. McAllister, I saw your face when I transferred to S1. I went to campus at Sekarang Gunung Pati, but I never learned English with you because you never taught us for that program. Ladies and gentlemen, special to Mr. McAllister, my question is very direct. We are, as an English teacher, should be able to facilitate or encourage students to learn English because that's not their mother tongue. Some students, or maybe many students, get frustrated when they learn English further from basic level, goes to maybe very complicated level or high level. They find difficulties in improving or developing their grammar in English. They just like they get frustrated. More they learn English, more they find difficulties, and it is a kind of something that make them discouraged with their English, whether it is spoken as well as written. So in this case, Mr. McAllister, based on your experience, what do you suggest for this case? Me as a teacher, things that I can give them to keep on rocking learning English so that they do not feel frustrated. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. A bit of a bigger question I'll answer quickly, although this requires a completely new seminar, EC. You'll have to invite Kay to lead the next one. I'm retired, EC. I'm retired. Anyway, a couple of things. I find one of the most common experiences of higher level students is frustration. Not just there in Indonesia, all over the world. And here in Canada, I teach at Simon Fraser University, my EAP classes. These kids come in at a 5.5 IELTS or a 6 IELTS. They're required to do some English upgrading. And it's just frustrating for them when the same old thing they're struggling with. Two comments. Number one, as I said before, a lot of the things that they're frustrated with and about are things that they've never learned to begin with, but they should have learned earlier on. I think it is extremely important to teach the lower levels. Now, kids are kids, so you SD teachers, you got kids, but I'm thinking junior high, high school, but beginning in English. That would be a type of student I would love to teach. So when I die and come back in my new life, I'm not going to go to UNES. I'm going to go to some junior high school beginning students and teach them, because I think it's so important that you get the grounding early on. Now, that's the first thing. Now, it doesn't help the student that's frustrated at the upper levels, but I'm accounting for the reason perhaps is because they've never really had it correct. And that's why we can teach, especially the second one I'm going to point out, the second example is a good one. You can teach it right from the beginning. And even this idea of time and tense, don't use the grammar words, never use the grammar words, but there's ways to help students produce correct English that communicates what they want to say. The second thing is I've had students say to me, why didn't anybody correct me before? Or why didn't anybody tell me that before? I've been studying English for 12 years and no one's ever told me that. And now it kind of like, it's too late. So again, that's part of the frustration I've encountered with students is that they've thought that everything is fine. But when you get to upper level academic English, professional English, English needed for the workplace, and especially in, for example, we have English here for medical purposes, you have to be pretty accurate or else you might kill somebody if your English is not good enough. So, and they get very frustrated because we correct things, for example, that they thought that they were doing correctly. So I'm very honest with my students, but it's a huge question and that's all I'm going to say about it. But to all of you out there who teach lower levels, you have the wonderful privilege of doing it correctly so that when we get them at the upper levels, we don't have to repeat the same thing again and again. Anyway, should we move on to the second part, EC, at this point?
Yes, please do, Lawrence. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna share the screen again and give you my second example. Okay. Okay. So my first text was a speaking. It had to do with this time. The second text, this happened in Canada at Simon Fraser University, and it involves nouns and miscommunication. And what this text represents, this story represents, is an opportunity to teach something or to help a student learn something that just came up spontaneously. It wasn't part of the lesson. In fact, it was after class. Okay, it was after class. And I found that some of the best learning happens in an example that I'm going to give you right now. Okay, so this happened a few years ago at Simon Fraser University. And I was talking with a student after class about her IELTS test. So the class was done, kids were leaving, and I said, oh, hey, how did you do in your IELTS test? And I was an IELTS examiner, and I knew that she had just taken the test. And I asked her about her speaking test. So speaking, what was your topic in the speaking test? What was your topic? Okay, so that's the setting. Okay, so after class, talking with the student, what was your speaking topic? And she said, okay, so I said, so what was your speaking topic? And she said, flower. I said, really? That's strange. Now, the reason I said really that's strange is because I used to be, past, I was an IELTS examiner. So I knew that they would never give a topic flower. And also I knew what she meant, but I thought I'm going to play along with her. I'm going to take her at her word, what she said. And I remember doing this intentionally. So what was your speaking topic? Flower. Oh, really? That's strange. So what did you talk about? Cooking? And she said, huh? No, my topic was flour. I talk about flour. I said, right. So like baking bread or how flour is made from grain. And she said, no, flour. And I remember she got, I'm probably talking loud myself here. She got really not angry, but completely frustrated. You mentioned being frustrated. She was very frustrated. She said, no, flour. Don't you understand? She said that to me. And finally, in utter frustration, she marched up to the blackboard and she drew that. That's my topic, flower. And I said, but that's a different word. That's flowers. And she looked at me And her eyes grew big. And she said, oh, I'll never make that mistake again. Now, this was in a speaking context. And what I did is I knew her topic was flowers. And I knew it wasn't flower. But we have two words in English, flower and flowers, which are completely different. If you look at that, you say, well, flower, and you add an S and it becomes flowers. No, that's not what happened. These are completely different words. Okay? So she was communicating again something. She was communicating that tepung, what's that? Tepung terigu, right? Tepung gandum. She was communicating tepung gandum and not bunga, right? That's what she was communicating the wrong thing. Okay. Now you could say, well, is that a pronunciation problem? Yeah. Was that a grammar problem? Yep. Was it a vocabulary problem? Yep. This represents all three. But she did say, I'll never make that mistake again, and I don't think she ever will. Now, this represents something that it's called ambiguous nouns. This is my term. Ambiguous means you're not clear what the meaning is. You're not clear what the meaning is. Okay? They could have a number of different meanings. And again, this concept gives you a great opportunity, in a sense, to play with your students to help them see that they've actually used the wrong word. You're dealing with something that involves grammar, vocabulary, but you're dealing with it communicatively. Now, here's what would normally happen. Normally, what would happen would be this. So what was you speaking about? Flower, okay. And most people who didn't care if their students spoke clearly or correctly or not would say, okay, fine, flower. And I knew it meant flowers. No learning would take place. But because I started talking about tepung gandum, and then she wanted to talk about, because of this, she learned something very significant. So you take advantage of as a teacher, take advantage of these things. Okay. So here's an example. You can have flower. Here's another example of an ambiguous noun. What do you mean? The animal or the meat? Here's another one. Someone wrote on the screen, but here's another one. What do you mean? The candy, a flavor, or a color? Chocolate, chocolate, or chocolate. What do you mean? Because they're all the same word, aren't they? Here's another one.
They are.
Iron, 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 iron. You know, they're the same word, aren't they? Well, my answer is no, they're not. In each of these set, only one of those words has an S. Only one of them is flowers. Only one of them are chickens. Only one of them are chocolates. Only one of them are irons. The rest aren't. These are ambiguous nouns, okay? But to a native speaker, they're not ambiguous. They're very, very clear, okay? So let me give you an example. This has to do, of course, with count, non-count. By the way, the term count, non-count is just stupid and wrong and ridiculous because we can count all nouns. We just do it in a different way, but we're stuck with these horrible terms, count and non-count. But we have this notion of, and I call it clothing, okay? So a count noun has to have something in front of it. And it can also have an S behind it. It's kind of like you put on your shirt and you put on your pants. But a non-count noun is just non-count, okay? No clothing. Naked if you want. Here's the example. In the speaking test, I asked her what her topic was, okay? And she said flower. That's what she said. Now, flour is a cooking material made from grain. BC, can you see my highlighter working there in red?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So that's what she said. The problem was, this was her topic. Okay? Which is right or which is wrong? Both. They're both completely correct. Flour is a completely correct word. Flowers is a completely correct word, or a flower. By the way, the clothing in front, you can have a flower, the flower, my flower, your flower, his flower. You can have them both 20 flowers, a dozen flowers, green flowers, blue flowers, but you just won't have flower. If you say the word flower, you're not talking about plants. You're talking about things that you use to cook with. If you just say flour. And we have lots of these, okay? Don't go to McDonald's and say, I'd like a chicken, please. A chicken goes and is living. You don't want a chicken. You want chicken, okay? And these are not, okay, this is a type of meat. Iron, an iron, strika, irons, that's a household appliance, but iron could be a metal, a type of rock, or even a vitamin. You go into a health store. And don't go into a health food store looking for vitamin, and don't say, I'd like some irons. They'll say, no, you need to go to a department store where they sell strika. We don't sell irons here. We sell iron. And the point is that these have completely different meanings. Chocolate. If you say chocolates or a chocolate, chocolate, that's the candy. But if you just say chocolate, you're saying something completely different. You could be in a store looking at clothing, a shirt or a dress, and you want a color. Do you have it in chocolate? That's a color. Don't say, do you have it in chocolates? Because that's a candy, and they will just laugh at you, okay? Or a flavor. What kind of ice cream do you like? Oh, I'd like chocolate ice cream. It's a flavoring, something you use in cooking. School. What's the difference between a school and school? Well, a school is a building, right? So where's your brother? Oh, he's at the school. That means building. But school, he's in school, is an educational process. Okay, it doesn't need an S. So if you say schools, you're talking about a building. Time is another one. I won't take time with this, but we have many times. I've been there many times. There was a time when I worked at eKeep. Okay, there was a time, and many times I taught Weedy. Okay, and I taught Yeni, and I taught students. Okay, I've been there many times. Okay, that's a meaning. But the idea of time without an S, a non-count form, has completely different meaning. What time is it? Don't say what times is it, because it doesn't make sense. Or sorry, I don't have any time today. You're not talking about jam, or you're talking about your willingness. Okay. And also time can be measured. Very complex, okay? Beef. I have a beef, EC. That means I have a problem. I have something I'm not happy about. It's a beef. But if you say, I have beef, if I say I have beef, you'll say, well, what are you eating? It's a completely different meaning. And the only difference is that same with law and life and more. Okay, here's my point. In my discussion about flour, okay, this was an instance of, let's call it an error in grammar or pronunciation or vocabulary. But what it does, she was communicating something, but she wanted to communicate this, but she didn't. And in all these situations with these, especially ambiguous nouns, this example, what happened to this student and me after class, when I asked her what her speaking topic was in the IELTS test, and she said it was flour, was on my part very intentional. And what I did, and a principle of teaching grammar, this is another way that can help you. If they do something like that, okay? If they do something like that, then take them at their word. In other words, you said flour, tepung gandum, so talk about tepung gandum, but she doesn't want to talk about that. Let them experience the impact of their grammatically correct miscommunication. And the experience that this student had was two. First, anger. Ah, don't you understand? And then writing it on the board in frustration. And the second experience she had was, I'll never make that mistake again, because she was upset and learned from it. There's an expression that I've had, I learned it many, many years ago. It says, no one can teach you anything. We learn by experience. And so whenever it comes up, and as a teacher, I'm always looking for opportunities to interact with students when they do something like this, okay? For example, in the verb tense story we had earlier, tell me about high school. What happened then? And she said, my favorite subject is French. I really like that subject, okay? I could say, you like French best? So why are you in the English department? That's what. Now, when I did that years ago, I didn't know this. So I was just frustrated and confused. And I was saying, well, really? And, oh, do you mean you studied English? You studied French in high school? That's what I said. You heard it on the recording. But if I had to do it again now, this is what I would do. Okay, well, not on a test, but this is what I would do. This is where you are dealing with a grammar problem communicatively. Or you could say this, can you take both French and English at UNIS? I thought they were different departments. The student will look at you like you're crazy. And, or, well, do you have a French class today? She said, because she said my favorite subject is French. And this, what you're doing, okay, you say it is French, then these are questions I'm going to ask you about. Now, I knew it wasn't. I knew she was talking about high school. But when I respond to her communicatively this way, she's learning by experience. And I think this is the very... Bahasa Jawa. The very best way to learn. With ambiguous nouns, my topic was flour. Oh, cooking, baking, how you take wheat and make flour for... No, you know, you can play with them. This is an easy one to play with your students, to embarrass them, but do so gently, you know. Don't correct them. Communicate with them. Don't correct them. Believe what they say, even though you know it's wrong, and communicate with them. Okay, and more whenever the opportunity arises. So this cannot happen all the time. There's just moments in your teaching when something like this happens. The example I gave with flour happened after class to this student, and we were informally talking about her IELTS topic, but it was probably the most important lesson she learned all semester because she learned it through her own experience by getting angry and frustrated. And I was able to help her communicatively, and I never once said, notice what I said, I did not say it's wrong. I didn't say it's wrong. I said, but flowers, that's a different word. Because it is a different word. So this is one, I think, let me check. I think that's done, yeah. So stopping sharing. So that's the second example I had. These are two times in my teaching career, one in Indonesia with a student, one in Canada with a student, where I as a teacher learned something really, really important. For the first one, the frustration of perfectly correct grammar, but miscommunication. And in the second one, I realized that I can play with my students. You say he, okay, it's a boy, it's a male. I'm going to talk to you about the male. I know you mean female, but you're talking male, and the student will learn through that experience. So these are two things that have helped me, and we can pause right now, Isi, for some questions or comments.
Okay, thank you. So in the second session, Mr. McAllister talked about how students use noun, but with in a different way because of the articles. So article is important. If you use it incorrectly, or if you don't use it for the incorrect intention, then your interlocutor or your hearer, especially a native speaker, would notice, would be confused and would notice that there is something wrong with it. But the important, I think this is the important thing about having an English-speaking linguist as our teacher, because he can notice our errors, which we don't. Like English teachers in Indonesia might not automatically grasp that errors. So we are very lucky today that Mr. McAllister has highlighted this issue. Yeah. So then we see that there is somebody, Ibu Iin Indrayani, who is ready for question. Please, Bu Iin.
Thank you, Professor Isri. It's been a while, Prof. How are you, Prof? I'm so happy to be with you and to be with Mr. Alistair. How are you?
I'm just fine. I'm back home where I should be, interacting with my colleagues and friends and students.
Okay, it was very insightful for me myself. That it's an honor for me to be here with you all, and it's such very interesting topic to be discussed this morning. So I'm really interested. So I believe that this happened to most teacher in Indonesia, teaching ambiguous noun, as you just shared to us this morning. Thank you, sir. That my question is, perhaps do you have a really effective tips, perhaps, or tips or strategy? How do we cope with this ambiguous noun? And then so can teach those nouns effectively to the student, the way we communicate, or it means for communications. That's really my question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof, and thank you.
Yeah, the term ambiguous, excuse me, I have a cough. The term ambiguous nouns, I made it up. I couldn't find a noun, a term that made sense. But if I could, let me just share with you, EC, one more screen share, something here. Because I think this was the question. Can you see my screen share? Okay, so there's a lot of these kind of nouns. I've given some examples. Some of them are very common. Chocolate, chicken, school, time, flower. These are very common words. The point being is, in all these types of nouns, only one of them is flowers, chickens, irons, have that clothing, that S. The other word doesn't have that. Flower, chicken. It's a completely different word. You're not adding an S. Let me just give you some idea about this. And I thought this might be a question, so I threw this together. This may help you. I don't know if anybody have studied French, but like French, all nouns in English are classified into two types. Okay, so when students are learning nouns and they start making their vocabulary lists in their vocabulary book, that is one of the worst ways to learn nouns, unless you have two distinct lists or two distinct books. And you put one type of noun in the one book and the other type of noun in the other. So you would put flower in one book, okay? You'd put this in one book. That's a word. You'd put flowers in another book. You'd put chicken in one list because that means meat. But a chicken or chickens, that's not the plural. That's a completely different word. If you say chicken, you're talking about meat. If you say chocolate, you're not talking about a candy. Those are completely different words. So the idea is like French, if you look at the body parts in French, okay, I just want to show you. I want someone to tell me what's the first thing that comes to your mind? What's the first thing you see on here? And when I did some research on this last week, I went to 20, 30, I stopped. Every single French language learning site and book I used, I have a book here right beside me that we use, does it the exact same way. No material does it any way different, but like this. What do you see about French nouns? And this is body parts. What's the first thing you see? I need someone to answer. Someone be brave. Okay, well, I'll be brave. They all start with L. Every single noun in the French language starts with L. If you have a dictionary of French, a French dictionary, now it's not true, but for example, but if you take how nouns exist in French, you would have one section, L, and the whole book would be full of L words because every noun in English, in French, starts with L. Okay? Now, sometimes it's L-E, le, and sometimes it's la. Okay? But and sometimes that's because of the E, and this has to do with plural lay. But nonetheless, because according to French, all nouns are classified according to gender. And so there are feminine nouns, la, and you got thousands and thousands of these, and you got masculine nouns, le, and there's thousands and thousands of these. By the way, this is leg, la jambe, and this is le genou, is knee. Why is leg feminine and the knee masculine? I have no idea. It's meaningless. But the idea they classify. So the French brain looks like this. And anybody in the world who has studied French learns every noun as either le or la. And they never make mistakes. Well, early on, but it just becomes embedded in your brain because you're never told the word table, table. Table is not table. It's la table. La, it's la. And in any French language teaching, every noun is introduced in the very same way. They do it correctly. Okay. So when you learn French and you look at French materials, they teach nouns completely correctly, the way they should be taught to French learners. All nouns begin with L, and they're either le or la. Now, the English noun system does the same thing. And we classify it according to countability. Now, the word count, as I said before, is silly. We count everything. I can count flour, 2 sacks of flour. Okay, I just don't put S on the flowers, because if I put an S, flowers, now I've got to count. But we have what's called count nouns, and I can learn them as a or the, or I can put an S on, okay? Whereas, and I call that clothing, something on the front, like a shirt, and an S at the end, like pants. Whereas flour, iron, chocolate, chicken, those don't need any clothing, okay? And all in the English brain, all nouns are classified this way. And when we start learning as little children, we're speaking, we learn early on, just as in French, that a flower, a chicken, an iron, lives, a school, chocolates go there, and flower, chicken, iron, life, chocolate, school. Those are different words. I want to say that again. Those are different words. We put them in different types, in parts as we learn. Okay, that's the English brain. Okay. By the way, the classification, as I said, is meaningless and stupid. There's nothing in a noun that makes it masculine or feminine. That's just the way that they've classified it. And in English, this idea of count and non-count is silly. All nouns can be counted. We just do it in different way. If you count a noun, you put an S on the noun. But if you count a non-count, you have to put the S on your determiner. Education stays education. As soon as I say these words, okay? So here's the idea. What do? You got to teach the classification system. You got to teach. You don't say it's count, non-count. You don't teach count, non-count. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is when you teach, just like French, every noun is le or la. So in English, if it's a count noun, it begins with a table, a chair, a computer, a bike, a phone, a pen, a cell phone, a boat, a guitar. Okay, and that's how you must teach them. Whereas non-count nouns, flower, chocolate, information, that's how you teach them. Okay, so for example, there you go. These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 different words. What's the relationship between a chicken and chicken? Nothing in the sense of learning. And these are actually, I should have used different ones, the ambiguous ones, especially chocolate and a chocolate, okay? So you have to teach them this way. And I've done this. All count nouns when I teach begin with a. That's how I teach them. You can also teach them just with S, chickens, flowers, times, informants, examples, sound systems, umbrellas. You can do it that way, but I find that works better. This is where English dictionaries don't help because they just have the word, and in dictionaries, they're all naked. That's all you see. So dictionaries are really, really not a help, not a friend to learning nouns. They're actually an enemy. Because if you went to a French dictionary of nouns, you would see la and le. But when you go to a dictionary for English, that's all you see. They don't do this. So all count nouns begin with a. That's how you have to teach it. Okay? That's how you have to teach them. And when students write and produce, and especially this is where I say if you're teaching early on, never teach your students pencil. It's a pencil. Never teach your word bunga, flower. It's a flower. Never teach your children book. It's a book. Never teach your students chair. It's a chair. Okay? So, and don't let students just write their word list all mixed together. Because some of these are count, some of these are not. Okay? So this is not helpful. Because what happens is that produces what I'll call the ESL brain where all the words are there. But as you say, they're all mixed up. Okay? And so you get these constant mistakes. And so it's what's difficult and frustrating for me is French has been doing it right for years. And we've never clued in to that's the way we should do it because we have the exact same system. We have a noun system that's classified, not by gender, by this notion of countability. And if we don't teach them the way French has done successfully, we're still going to end up with this kind of a situation. So that's one thing. So, and also be very, very careful with these ambiguous nouns. S isn't the plural form. For example, chocolates isn't the plural of chocolate. They're completely different words. Iron means something. Irons means something. The S is not the plural in these ambiguous nouns. Okay, so this is something to remember. You can't pluralize chocolate. If you do, you got a different word. And so this is something that I have found helpful. And this idea relates to this flowers as well example that I showed before. Sorry, I had this prepared and I thought it might be helpful because the question related to these types of nouns that they look so similar, but one is count, so it needs an A or an S, and the other is not, and we have to teach them that way.
Well, that was a very inspiring and enlightening presentation, Pak Lori. Well, participants, we know from Pak Lori that there are some sets of words that look similar or sound similar, but they are actually different words. And we have to teach them with these two, memorable terms, naked and clothed. So with a set of words, you might need the clothing with the word A or S, with the beginning of A and the NS. But with the other set of words, you don't need anything. You must have them naked.
And that's when you teach them, how you teach them. Then when we use them, it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is easily remembered by the students in this way, teaching in this way. So I think this would inspire the teachers here, how to teach students with the nouns. Okay, and I see that there is somebody raising hand here, Ibu Efima Setiawan. Would you please ask the question briefly? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Efima from Moharingun Najah, Klaten. Good morning and good evening, Mister. I'm teaching 7th graders, and as usual, that we got students from various elementary school. Some of them are quite good in both written and spoken English, but some of them have no idea about the English, even the alphabet. They still don't know how to pronounce the alphabet. But then you talk about the nouns. It's very basic that I have to teach them in 7th graders. But I think it's quite complicated to, to teach them the countable and uncountable, but we need that in communication practices. So how do you suggest that when we can start to teach them these two things, like because we teach the A and N and then the in 7th graders, but then with the the meaning like this and that you already talk about. So how we can simplify to teach that for the 7th graders, like let's say with zero background knowledge about English. Thank you.
It doesn't really relate to whether they're 7th grade or whether they're adults or kids. I look upon this when I start with vocabulary. When you teach this as a word to your students, this word is not pen, it's a pen, a pen, a pen. This is not, I don't know what this is. This is not coffee mug, it's a coffee mug, a coffee mug, okay? This is not picture, it's a picture, okay? Conversely, when you get into the count ones, For example, I'm trying to find one. Of course, the majority of English nouns are count, but you get into something like information, teach it that way. Don't teach information. So right from the start, when you're introducing and learning vocabulary, this is a cell phone. Okay. So when they're doing the vocabulary lists, and I've done this, I insist, and then I've done a different section of the book is where words like flower, chocolate, meaning a color, iron, meaning vitamin, flower, meaning tepung, that has to be in a different section. Flowers or a flower is in a different section. So it's something that you have to do right from the beginning when you teach vocabulary. The problem is when they're not, they just learn words by themselves. The French have done it right. But when they do it the normal way, everything's mixed up and you're going to just have nothing but frustration and problems. You're right. Yeah. I'm looking around my room for a furniture. I have furniture in my house. There you go. So I teach the word furniture. But what I'm sitting on is not chair, it's a chair. And especially with learners too, early ones, insist on it. Don't let them say chair. This is chair. No, it's not, it's a chair. I find that it's just as easy, it's far easier to teach something correctly the first time than to try to correct it years later.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Let's teach a chair.
Because
That's the vocabulary. Yeah, think of English. Le, la, French. Everything is le, everything is la, 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 la. And that's how everybody learns French, and we don't make mistakes.
So it is more difficult to correct what has been fossilized, right?
That's most of my work. Most of your work maybe too. So those of you teaching, like, and there's lots of you here, you have a great opportunity. Yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now 10 o'clock. I think that's all for Lori's presentation and discussion session. And we should remind you that in the chat box, we have provided you with the link for evaluation. And the evaluation, we also have a link for your attendance for certificate. So please do fill up the link. Yeah. And thank you very much, Pak Lori. And I think you agree with me that Pak Lawrence McAllister deserves our warm appreciation. So let's applaud Mr. McAllister. And I think we will let the participants to download the link and to fill up the links. And if you have any other things to do, you may leave the Zoom meeting. And we would love to have some people who want to have informal meeting with Mr. McAllister to stay on Zoom. Yeah. And especially those who were the former students of Mr. McAllister, and also we invite others who want to stay up to 11 o'clock, about 11 o'clock. We will do it informally. So perhaps the host can stop the live streaming because it's now the informal session. Thank you very much for attending the webinar, which is very interesting, and we really hope that we will see you again on other occasion. And Pak Lori, we would love also to have perhaps you with Ibu Kay